reality. Now, when I went to school, I learned that not everyone was having those kind of experiences at night.
Yeah. So you had your own personal ghost?
Pardon me?
Did you have your own personal ghost? Your own haunting?
We had several. We had several. Our home was built on what had been the stagecoach stop in the area. And according to local legend, the James boys, the Dalton boys, everyone that stayed there, the Great Northfield, Minnesota raid, they stayed there. I'm not saying that house. I'm saying where that station had stood, our house then was built using a lot of the same lumber. So we would hear horses and chariots and stagecoaches and so forth. And, you just accepted it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the pounding on the walls would get you a little disconcerted. But you see, nothing had ever harmed me.
Yeah.
These entities were just looking at me.
Really?
So I looked upon all of this as psychic residue. And I didn't see any association between survival after death and ghosts. I just thought this was a phenomena, and I didn't think there could be any intelligent exchange. Then when I was in my 30s, I had worked everything out and figured that I knew everything that there was to know about hauntings. I was called in with a group of individuals, police officers and so forth, to a home where a series of murders, horrible murders, had taken place.
Really?
And I have to say, this house was evil. Mm-hmm. This house was evil, and it harbored an entity that was violent.
Brad, let me clear something up. You didn't participate in those murders, did you?
No, I did not.
Okay. Just checking.
Only secondhand by watching them. I mean, there would be like a panorama. You could observe the horrible scenes that took place. At any rate, in this particular house, the entity was so violent that when I angered it, it knocked the hinges off the door and lifted all of us into the air and then dropped us.
Whoa.
Now that was a life-altering experience.
Yeah?
Because I saw there was no one explanation. There's no one explanation for this haunting, this phenomena that we broadly call haunting, that we broadly call ghosts, there are just so many. I hate categories, but yet we, as the human mind, we have to have them, and that's why in Shadow World I did break down into different categories of entities. Mm-hmm. They may all be the same. It may depend upon the individual, how it interacts with this entity. But now I do make a distinction between the survival hypothesis, between restless ghosts, and between the phenomena that I still think accounts for most hauntings, and that's where psychic residue somehow is impressed in the environment. Terrible sickness, terrible anger, terrible pain, terrible hatred. Somehow, let's face it, Daniel, there are a few happy ghosts. We don't really encounter many Caspers in doing our research. Mm-hmm. And most of it had to do with that, with the more negative human emotions.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let me ask you this question real quick. This is on our coming in on our live chat line. Is there anything that could be representative of, say, a ghost alien? Can aliens have ghosts?
Can aliens have ghosts?
Yeah.
I would answer that by saying that most of what we think are aliens are probably entities, multidimensional entities. But certainly any living thing can have a ghostly image. To me, I don't mean to twist it around, but that's like saying, can your dog have a ghost? Yes, and any living thing leaves its impression upon the environment, upon the atmosphere. So anything living, and you don't even need to get into a discussion of the soul or the spirit, anything living would project a ghostly image, or could project a ghostly image.
Brad, let me ask you, and by the way, those that just tuning in, we are talking to Brad Steiger, Master Ghost Hunter. Brad, you said that you and several others were lifted up in the air. Did you feel hands or claws, or what did you feel? How were you lifted up?
An incredible force, an incredible energy.
And did you go running out of the room?
Fortunately, we were all professionals, including the police officers with us. Everyone was startled. Everyone was stunned. Everyone probably didn't say a whole lot for a while. But no, we didn't run. We dealt with it. We tried to perform, whether you want to call it an exorcism or bringing an entity into the light, whatever you're comfortable calling it. We tried to put the entity at peace. Now, in this particular case, I'll be honest, we didn't have a great deal of success. 4 horrible murders had taken place in that home.
Really?
And I think it had just become a repository of evil. And we urged the residents, I mean, you can't, it's hard, but we suggested, that perhaps, the house, a murder would take place, the house would sit empty for about 10 years, someone would move in, and the murders, I should say this, were replicated. In each case, a man killed his wife with a 12-gauge shotgun.
Really?
So this happened, and I don't want to live in that house. And then it would sit empty for a while, and then someone would move in. I'm not afraid of that. There's nonsense. And after a while, his wife would be blown in half with a 12-gauge shotgun.
Ooh, that had to be messy.
Two of them took place in a room in the basement. One took place in the garage. The 4th murder occurred to a transient when the place was sitting empty. And eventually you began to notice a stench in the place, and investigators found him lying on the basement steps.
Yeah. Well, I don't have a ghost story, but one day I was years ago I was in my apartment, and it smelled like somebody was cooking cabbage, and I can't stand cabbage. I thought, well, maybe it's a holiday, people don't. And so days later, this person upstairs is still cooking cabbage. I'm smelling it. I'm saying, I can't stand it. I'm going to have to go up there and deal with this, because if there's one thing I can't stand is the smell of cabbage. Well, the following day, this is 3-4 days later, the following day, all of a sudden the police and the firemen rolled up, and they went up in this apartment above mine, and apparently the woman had committed suicide, and she was in the bathtub, and she had bloated up so much that she got stuck. Of course, they were joking. They were saying, "Hey, don't pop her, because I don't want her to pop on my equipment."
Terrible.
And of course, then I couldn't believe this. Then one of the rescue workers said, "Hey, we don't even need a stretcher because rigor mortis is set in." I'm thinking, man, where's the sympathy here, But I'm just wondering, in that kind of sense, where you have a body stuck in a tub like that, is that enough? Is a suicide enough to cause an impregnation, as you say, or sort of I said, that a sort of residue? Of course, I'm sure there was other kinds of residues we don't want to talk about, but
right.
Is that enough?
Here again, every case is unique. Now, again, suicide, we have to say in general, I think most people agree, is not the proper solution to one's problems. But in some cases where the pain is so severe, where there's been terrible illness, judge not that you be judged. I think in those cases where the person, allowed himself to drift into, whether it was pills or whatever, there probably was a piece and a passing. You might see the residue. Someone of a particular sensitivity might sense that a